Many years ago, I started working as an international bird guide. One of the first places I was sent was Madagascar, a place full of fascinating lemurs, chameleons, and birds, of course. We visited the famous Ranamafana National Park, where we hiked up a mountain to go looking for the yellow-bellied sunbird ascity, a beautiful endemic bird found only on the high mountain ridges, where it feeds on the flowers of a strange parasitic plant. Our local guide, Emil, took us to a spot. He pointed at some red flowers, and he told us to wait. After a few minutes, a gorgeous little bird shot in. It put its long, curved bill in the tubular flowers, and then it was gone. We'd seen it. It was a really special moment. I came back every year, and on my first few visits, we saw it every time. In the following years, fewer and fewer times. And in recent years, not at all. So what happened? Well, another bird, a similar bird called the common sunbird ascity, moved upslope and outcompeted the yellow-bellied sunbird ascity. This bird, the yellow-bellied sunbird ascity, was pushed higher and higher until finally it disappeared. This was my first personal glimpse of the effect of climate change on birds. Birds are indicators or storytellers. They tell us when seasons shift, when habitats change, or when the climate itself is changing. In the last few decades, in the northern hemisphere, the ranges of migrant birds have shifted further north. In England, where I'm from, barn swallows breed every year in summer, but instead of flying all the way down to Africa, some now spend the winter there. European bee-eaters used to only breed further south in places like France and Spain. Now, some nest in England. Things are changing. But I want to talk about birds that don't migrate, specifically birds on mountains. With global warming, they can only move one way, and that's uphill. And eventually, they run out of mountain. For me, after a lifetime of watching birds, a species going extinct is more than a statistic. It's really heartbreaking. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to get to Hawaii, still home to some spectacular birds, but also known as the bird extinction capital of the world. The native forests there used to be home to a wonderful variety of birds, but in the 1800s, sailors brought mosquitoes. Later, avian malaria arrived, and within a few decades, most of the lowland forest bird species were gone. They had no resistance to this new disease. For a long time, the mountains offered safety, too cool for mosquitoes. But now, with global warming, the mosquito line creeps uphill. Mountains are big in the base and pointy on top. As birds are pushed higher and higher, given that each bird needs a certain area to live, there's just less and less space to survive. This beautiful bird is the iwi. It's one of these native Hawaiian birds being pushed higher and higher. I felt very privileged to see this bird, but the local guide told me that many Hawaiian birds are vanishing. In a few years, they'll be extinct. This story is quite a unique situation. But in most of the world, climate change is affecting birds by changing their habitats. Citizen science shows us what's happening. But to understand why, we need to know more about habitats. A few years ago, when I started co-authoring a series of books on habitats, my view of the natural world expanded. Instead of just thinking about birds, I had to think about forests and climate and even fire. So I want to talk a little bit about habitats. This is Doisatep here in Chiang Mai, a mountain just a few kilometers away from where I'm standing. In Thailand, we have a rainy season and a dry season. Some of you might have noticed that in the rainy season, the whole mountain is green. But in the dry season, it's green on the top, but it's brown at the bottom. Why is that? Well, like people, trees need water. When it's hot, they need more water. As you go higher up the mountain, it gets cooler. Also, water vapor. Warm air rises, water vapor in the air condenses, and clouds form. So the mountaintops are cooler, and they're getting more rain. The trees up there have enough water to keep their leaves all year round. These are called montane evergreen forests, or cloud forests, and they contain different tree and bird species than lower down. If you go birdwatching on Doisatep, you might see one of these. Down the bottom in the dry forest, this is a red-billed blue magpie. Beautiful blue bird with a long tail and a bright red bill. Whereas at the top, if you're very lucky, you might see one of these. Beautiful blue and green bird called a green cochoa. I was so excited when I saw this bird for the first time. I rushed down to tell my son and I took him up to see it. In the dry forest down the bottom, the deciduous forests that lose their leaves, many of the tree species are fire resistant. We see forest fires every year in Chiang Mai, but every rainy season, they go green again. The forests higher up don't usually burn because they're not as dry. So let's think about climate change. What happens when the temperatures rise? Well, two things. The trees use more water, and also the water vapor in the air doesn't condense as much. So it's hotter, and there's less rain. The forests dry out. So in the future, in the dry season, instead of Doisatep being brown on the bottom and green on the top, it might be brown at the bottom and brown at the top. What will that mean? Well, maybe the plants will change. Maybe the dry forest bird species move higher. With it drying out, maybe forest fires will move higher into the montane forest where the trees are not fire resistant. This drying of forests leading to increased forest fires is being seen around the world. In the pine forests of California, in the Amazon rainforest, in the peat swamp forests of Sumatra and Borneo. This is the Dointanon sunbird, found only on top of Dointanon, Thailand's highest mountain here in Chiang Mai province. What will the effects of climate change be on it? Will its habitat change? Will it lose its food plants? Will it be outcompeted by other bird species moving higher? Will the montane forest dry out and burn? Maybe it will adapt. However, other species could be affected. Let's think about these places: Madagascar, Hawaii, Chiang Mai. One possible future: the yellow-bellied sunbird Hesse disappears. The iiwi, gone. The Dointanon sunbird, silenced. Let's think about a different future. We notice, we record, we learn, we act. The data we gather becomes knowledge, knowledge becomes solutions, and species can survive. I've been birdwatching since I was a little kid. I used to write down all the birds that I saw in a notebook. Now I log them onto eBird, a huge citizen science platform. I've put in 6,000 checklists of birds, but together with 1 million other bird watchers, this becomes a global database. From it, we can see birds arriving earlier in spring, breeding further north. Do you remember this bird, the beautiful European bee-eater? This map was created by birdwatchers' records on eBird. Now we can track their movements throughout the year. But in many countries, including Thailand, we need more data. We need more people to get involved. Another revolutionary citizen science platform is iNaturalist. eBird is specifically made for birdwatchers. iNaturalist is about all living things. It doesn't require any previous knowledge. You just download the app and you take a picture of something. That act joins you with millions of other people. Give it a go. Some of you might do it again. Some of you might be part of the solution. COVID meant that I wasn't able to travel the world for a couple of years. But the silver lining of that was that I had more opportunity to take my son and his friends into nature. For me, it was a deeply rewarding experience. For the kids, this kind of exposure can be life-changing. I want to finish by playing you the song of the Dointanon sunbird. Now, I want you to imagine a world without it. That silence is possible, but it isn't inevitable. Birds are the storytellers of climate change. By listening to them, by sharing what we notice, we give the future more than silence. We give it hope. Thank you.